Discover how a billionaire's crippled daughter's life-changing journey unfolded through an unexpected friendship. Grace Bennett stared out the window of her father's expansive mansion, watching the world move past. The manicured lawns of their affluent neighborhood seemed to mock her lesser-than feelings. At 25, with a disability that left her dependent on a wheelchair, life often felt suffocating. Her father, a self-made billionaire, drove a life filled with power and prestige, but she felt like an outsider in his world, just a girl trapped beneath his towering expectations. Would she ever escape the shadow of his wealth to find her true self? As the days blurred together, the news struck like a lightning bolt. An economic downturn ripped through their suburban town. People who once strolled confidently down the streets began to shuffle, eyes cast downwards. In the midst of chaos, Grace felt an urgent tug in her heart. The world around her was suffering, and she had spent too long feeling sorry for herself. One afternoon, while sketching the community from her window, she met Tyler the mechanic from down the street. Their first encounter happened by accident. Tyler hadn't realized that her wheelchair took up the spot where he usually parked his van. When he apologized, Grace saw a glimpse of earnestness in his eyes. He didn't fawn over her wealth, he treated her with genuine respect. They struck up a conversation, and she was surprised by his easy laughter. Days turned into nights, filled with the faint scent of motor oil and the sound of wrenches clanking together. Tyler's hands had seen wear, yet they skillfully guided Grace into a tangled world of engines and gears. He shared stories of his father, a war veteran who taught him the value of hard work. Their bond grew in that garage. Conversations meandered from dreams of art to challenges faced in their community. Grace found herself rekindling her passion for painting, sketching the weary faces around her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. But back at home, the chasm between Grace and her father widened. He was consumed by the decline of their wealth, pouring resources into maintaining their elite status while ignoring the struggles happening just outside their gated community. She longed to break free from his suffocating expectations, wanting to focus on art that captured the pain and resilience of those around her. Then, she received an invitation. Her work would be featured in a local gallery, a chance to share her vision and challenge the idea of economic inequality that plagued their town. But her father, seeing this as a threat, pushed back harder. This time, Grace knew she would have to fight for her beliefs. They were at a crossroads, her father's ambition versus her desire for authenticity. As the gallery opening neared, the tension boiled. Could her artwork spark change, or was she destined to remain lost in a world where privilege overshadowed purpose? It was a question that loomed large, and in the heart of that chaos, Grace felt her voice rising. Would she risk everything she knew to embrace her true self and carve a brighter path for those in need? Grace took a deep breath as the day of the gallery opening approached. Clumsy butterflies danced in her stomach, bouncing off the walls of her composure. She was overwhelmed, standing between her father's rigid expectations and her own soaring aspirations. "Grace, are you really sure about this?" Her father's voice boomed through the grand halls of their mansion, sending a shiver down her spine. "The public doesn't need to know our business, especially now." She looked up, her heart pounding. "Dad, it's not just about us. It's about everyone struggling out there," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I can share their stories and maybe inspire some change." He frowned, the familiar shadow of disappointment cast over his face. "Sometimes, people don't want to hear uncomfortable truths. This could damage our reputation." His icy demeanor chilled the air, but something unyielding rose within her. "I can't hide anymore. This is my chance," she insisted, refusing to back down. Riding home from Tyler's garage after a day filled with laughter and creativity, she felt invigorated. The stories they shared echoed in her mind, their authenticity sparking a fire in her heart. Through the laughter and moments of vulnerability, she found a part of herself that had been buried. That evening, she busied herself in her makeshift studio, a sunlit corner of her room that had seen many a paintbrush dance across canvas. The strokes became wild and passionate as she poured her feelings into the pieces she would show that night. Each brushstroke whispered the stories of workers, families on the brink, and the resilience she saw around her. Each painting held a piece of her spirit, defiant, raw, and genuine. As the sun set and the shadows grew long, Grace sank back in her wheelchair, looking at her work displayed before her. The opening was not just a showcase but a battle cry. She imagined standing before the crowd, her paintings begging for a dialogue, conversations of hope and sorrow, bringing light to those who felt invisible. On the way to the gallery, she could hardly contain her nervous excitement. Tyler was there, his presence a steadying warmth against the unease twisting in her gut. "You've got this, Grace. Just be you," he assured her, a simple promise that anchored her doubts. As they entered the gallery, she was hit by a wave of bright lights and chattering voices, some familiar, others alien. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, noses turned upward to admire the art lining the walls. But where would she fit in amid such grandeur? Her father stood aloof, a king surveying his court, his disapproving gaze causing her heart to stumble. Grace took a step forward, despite the weight of his expectations looming heavily on her shoulders. "Are you ready?" Tyler asked, his eyes filled with encouragement. "As ready as I'll ever be," she whispered, stealing her heart. With a deep breath, she rolled to her spot, positioning herself in front of her first piece, a painting that told the story of a mother helping her children through hardship. Silence fell over the crowd as they began to take in the art. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted her thoughts. "Grace? Is that you?" Her heart skipped. It was Mrs. Delaney, an old family friend. "I saw your invite and just had to come support you." "Thank you," Grace replied, her voice quaking with emotion. The sight of her and other familiar faces both warmed and terrified her, but as more visitors gathered, she felt something shift within her, a spark igniting the embers of courage. Maybe, just maybe, her voice could indeed make a difference. Closer voices began to murmur as they engaged with her work, discussing the struggles depicted on the canvas. The tension in her chest eased, replaced by a flicker of hope. Yet in the midst of the excitement, she sensed a shadow creeping toward her from the corner of her eye, her father's disapproving glower escalating. "Grace, we need to talk," he said through clenched teeth, waving a hand dismissively toward her paintings. "Maybe later," she replied, her pulse racing. She couldn't let him steal her moment, but would she be able to stand her ground? As her father stepped closer, a wave of uncertainty washed over her. Could she still fight for her vision, or was she bound to the life he dictated? The gallery thrummed with energy, and Grace was caught between the truth of her voice and the weight of her past. Would she embrace her art and the stories it told, or would her father's looming shadow snuff out the light she was fighting to ignite? Grace felt her heart race as her father crossed the space between them, the unmistakable tension crackling in the air. She needed to stay focused on her art, but now it felt like the ground beneath her shifted, tilting towards the weight of his disappointment. "Grace," he repeated, his voice a low growl that sent shivers down her spine. "You're making a mockery of our name." "Dad, this isn't about you or our name," she managed, her voice fierce despite her quaking insides. She glanced around the gallery, seeking refuge in the faces of the attendees, their murmurs about her work giving her strength. "It's about real people. Their stories matter." His eyes narrowed, and in that moment, she saw the man she had fought against her entire life, the man determined to smother her flames with his expectations. "Real people?" he scoffed, stepping closer, casting a shadow over her. "You think these stories of hardship will grant you some kind of credence? You're making us look weak." "Making us look weak?" Grace felt her hands ball into fists. You know what weakness really is? Hiding from the truth and silencing those who are suffering so you can preserve an image. A murmur rippled through the crowd. She felt their eyes on her, a mix of shock and curiosity, as if they were witnessing a private tussle erupt into something raw and public. "Remember your place, Grace," her father hissed, his voice a cruel whisper. "You're not ready for this world." But in that moment, something changed inside her. She wasn't that scared little girl anymore. She was a woman, a fiercely determined woman who refused to be sidelined and silenced. "No," she said, her voice rising, empowering her. "I won't stand back because you're afraid of what people will think. This is where I belong, sharing these stories, making them heard. No one gets to take that from me." With a deep breath, she turned back toward her painting, embracing the canvas with a gaze that transcended the crowd. Inspired by the warmth of their interest, she felt the shadows of doubt lift. Behind her, the murmurs grew louder, transforming into supportive whispers. They were listening. Tyler, sensing the shift in her resolve, chimed into the conversation, inviting others to join in. "These paintings are stories of struggle and triumph," he told the crowd. "They reflect the strength we all have inside us. Grace's work matters." Their admiration ignited a flame in her heart. The ambience transformed, it felt electric, charged with a collective energy of empathy and possibility. Grace closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the crowd wash over her, but her father remained firm and unyielding, arms crossed like a solid wall. She knew the battle wasn't over, if anything, it had just begun. Deep down, she unconsciously searched her father's eyes for any sign of understanding, any glimmer of acceptance. But his gaze remained steely, devoid of warmth. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Delaney approached her from the side. "Grace," she said softly, placing a hand on her arm. "What you're doing is important. The world needs your voice." The kindness in her tone soothed Grace's racing heart, making the surroundings blur slightly. "Thank you, Mrs. Delaney," she whispered, feeling tears prick at her eyes. "It's hard to feel like this is right sometimes." "It's always hard when you're doing something meaningful," Mrs. Delaney replied with a gentle smile. "But you are inspiring people right now. Just look around." Grace turned to see people engaged, contemplating her work, whispering, sharing stories. Even her father seemed to be taking notes somewhere behind her, a faint crease of uncertainty in his brow. As the crowd slowly moved to another piece, Grace looked back, feeling a sense of relief intertwined with purpose. She would push through this discomfort and fight for what she believed in. But just as she began to envision how her voice could ripple out into the world, the gallery doors swung open abruptly, and a new face stepped in. Everyone turned, the air thickening with anticipation. Who was this person, and how would they alter the unfolding story of her night? Grace's heart raced, curiosity surging alongside her fear. What new truths could possibly emerge tonight? The crowd's attention shifted, a collective intake of breath as the strangers emerged into the gallery. A man in a sharply tailored suit walked in first, his presence commanding and confident. Right behind him was a young woman in a wheelchair, her striking blue eyes glancing around, curiosity lighting her face. Grace's heart quickened. Was this a coincidence, or was fate weaving something unexpected into her night? "Is that?" Tyler leaned in, whispering next to Grace. "That's Cassie Crown, isn't it? I've heard stories about her." Grace turned back to him, a frown furrowing her brow. The last name sounded familiar. Cassie Crown was the daughter of one of the richest men in the country. Her story, or rather her struggles, had gripped headlines for years. An accident had left her confined to a wheelchair, but she had become an advocate for various social causes. "Yeah," Grace replied, eyes still on the pair. "Why is she here?" Before Tyler could respond, the man stepped forward, speaking with a captivating authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. My name is Nathan Crown. Tonight, my daughter and I are here to witness art that inspires change. We believe art has the power to connect us all, even in our struggles." The murmurs sparked back to life. Grace felt a rush of excitement and uncertainty. What did this mean? Cassie glanced at the crowd, her gaze landing on Grace's painting nearby. The way she studied it revealed a depth that struck something inside Grace. There was an understanding there, a shared spirit of fighting against the odds that resonated deeply. "May I?" Cassie asked her father, pointing toward Grace's work. With a nod, she wheeled herself closer, a steady determination in her movements. Grace swallowed. This wasn't just any visitor, this was someone who knew hardship, who had transformed her pain into advocacy. Hesitating, Grace stepped forward, wiping her clammy hands on her jeans. "Hi, I'm Grace." Cassie smiled, her expression radiant. "I know who you are. Your painting about empowerment, it speaks volumes. I've read about your work. It's inspiring." Heat flowed through Grace at the compliment. "Thanks. That means a lot coming from you." Cassie glanced back at the painting, and Grace followed her gaze. "I wanted to show that strength comes in many forms, and we shouldn't hide from our vulnerabilities." "I get that," Cassie said softly, her eyes shining with understanding. "I've fought many battles, but it's the stories, the real ones, that build bridges of empathy." Grace felt a connection ignite. "That's exactly what I believe too. Art can be a voice for those who feel powerless." Nathan Crown stepped forward, his expression shifting as he observed the two women. "Cassie has a vision for her initiatives that aligns with your message, Grace. We're looking for artists who can lend their voices to campaigns aiming to raise awareness about disability and empowerment." The words hung in the air, shimmering with possibility. Grace's heart raced. This was the opportunity she had longed for, not just for her art but for her purpose. But before she could respond, a sharp look from her father cut through her newfound excitement. His frown deepened, and Grace felt the tension return, a reminder of the weight that lingered between them. "Dad," she began, hope mixing with uncertainty. "That isn't a fit for you, Grace," he interrupted sharply, jarring her focus. "Why?" She shot back, defiance igniting in her chest. This could be our chance to make a real impact. As her heart beat harder, she knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, not just from her father, but also from her own fears. Would she leap into this vision of hope, or let old doubts pull her back? The moment felt pivotal, poised delicately between fear and possibility. Behind her, Cassie watched intently, waiting for Grace to choose a path. What would Grace decide? And what kind of impact could they create together? The choices were unfolding, but she could sense the clock ticking down to a vital moment of truth. Grace felt the weight of her father's words, like an anchor dragging her down. The crowd swirled around her, their murmurs painting a cacophony of opinions and expectations. Cassie's gaze held steady, and in that moment, Grace drew strength from it. "Mr. Crown," she began, searching for courage. "I appreciate what you're offering. But I need to know, what exactly would I be getting involved in?" Nathan smiled, sensing her hesitation. "We'll be launching a series of art exhibitions that celebrate disability and empowerment in public spaces. Your piece could not only inspire but also raise significant funds for initiatives that change lives." Cassie believes in the power of art to convey truths that often go unseen. Grace's heart fluttered at the thought. This was an opportunity to showcase her work in a way that actually mattered. Yet, the shadow of her father's disapproval loomed large. "But my dad, Grace," Cassie interjected, her tone gentle yet firm. "I know what it's like to feel limited by others' expectations. You have a voice that deserves to be heard. Don't let someone else predefine your path." The fire in Cassie's words ignited something deep within Grace. Memories flashed in her mind of her late-night struggles, hours spent painting, pouring feelings onto canvas, only to feel dismissed or unworthy. "Maybe this is my chance to break free," she thought. Okay, Grace said, her voice stronger now. I want to be part of this. Relief surged through Cassie's features. That's incredible. She exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Nathan nodded approvingly, but Grace caught a glimpse of the tension still on her father's face. Grace, think clearly, he warned, his tone laced with concern. You don't know what you're stepping into. I need to find out for myself, she replied, a tremor of resolve in her tone. If I don't at least try, I'll never know what I could achieve. The air in the gallery shifted, tension crackling like electricity. Tyler shifted closer, his uncertainty butting against his desire to support her decisions. Cassie looked at Grace with an understanding that wrapped around them both. It's about more than just art, Grace. It's about connection, community, and so many beautiful stories that are waiting to be told. You have the potential to change lives with your talent. In that moment, Grace felt the burdens of her past beginning to lift. This wasn't only about art, it was a chance to advocate for those who felt voiceless, to show the world the strength that thrived behind every struggle. As their discussion deepened, Grace's father remained silent but visibly troubled, the conflict in his eyes betraying his desire to shield her from disappointment. But standing beside Cassie, Grace felt the urgency to push forward. Let's talk about the next steps, Nathan said, breaking the momentary silence. Cassie turned to Grace, her demeanor glowing with excitement. We'll plan meetings, brainstorming sessions, the whole shebang. You and I could create something incredible together. Grace nodded, letting the warmth of possibility flood her. But just as she felt the wave of support, uncertainty slithered back in the lingering doubts of whether she was truly ready to commit to such an undertaking. What if I fail? She thought, anxiety warring with hope. Let's meet next week, Nathan said, sealing the moment. You'll have time to think it over with your family. With a nod, Cassie wheeled herself back a bit, looking between Grace and her father, expecting reactions. Grace's heart raced at the thought of all she could achieve but felt the familiar tether of her father's expectations pulling her back. As the crowd around them began to shift, Grace realized that this was a turning point. There was no escaping the truths that lay ahead, both within herself and in her relationships. But could she embrace this new reality without sacrificing her bond with her father? The night held promises, but also uncertainties. With Cassie's steady encouragement and her father's cautious support, Grace's journey was set to begin, yet the choices loomed large on the horizon. What awaited her in the weeks ahead? And would she find the courage to navigate the complexities of her relationships while chasing her dreams? Days slid by, each moment filled with the weight of anticipation. Grace found herself returning to her easel, splatters of paint covering her fingers as she attempted to turn her nerves into strokes of creativity. But with every brush against canvas, her father's voice echoed in her mind, cautioning her against a path that felt both exhilarating and frightening. Cassie had sent her an encouraging text just that morning, "Breathe, Grace. This is your moment." Those words ignited a flicker of hope, but the ache in her chest grew with each thought of her father's disapproval. "Grace." Her father's voice broke through her reverie. He stood at the door, his frame seeming taller than usual, an imposing silhouette. "Can we talk?" Her breath caught, and she hesitated before nodding. They needed to address this before she could step fully into this ambitious project. She placed her brush down, smudging paint onto her jeans, and moved toward the living room. "Have a seat." He motioned toward the couch, tension radiating from him. I need to understand what all of this truly means for you." Gathering her thoughts, Grace sat down, palms sweaty, heart racing. "Dad, it's about more than just art. It's a chance to tell stories, to advocate for those who need it. If I don't take this leap, I might regret it forever." He shook his head slowly, eyes clouded with worry. "I get that, but what if it goes wrong? What if you get hurt? This isn't just about you. It's about your future. Isn't that the point? To carve out my own future?" she shot back, her voice rising. You've always wanted me to be brave, Dad. This is my bravery. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration blending with genuine concern. Grace, I don't want to see you hurt. It's a tough world out there, and people can be unkind. I know it is, but I can't stay hidden forever. I want people to see my work and connect with it, just like your businesses connect with communities. Her words were filled with passion. We can make a difference. His silence hung heavy in the air. She could see the realization dawn on him, how her dreams collided with his protective instincts. I don't want to lose you, he finally admitted, his voice breaking slightly. I'm still the same person. I need you to trust me, she whispered, feeling warmth settle between them. The honesty of her plea struck a chord, and she watched the shadow of concern lift a fraction from his face. After a moment, he nodded slowly, uncertainty still flickering in his eyes. Okay. But promise me you'll keep me in the loop. No surprises. You'll talk to me, right? I promise, she said, her heart swelling with hope, even as a thin strand of doubt whispered in the back of her mind. The conversation shifted, their exchange weaving with newfound understanding, the connection between them strengthening. As they moved on to lighter topics, Grace felt the weight lift just a little more with every shared laugh, but even as laughter echoed in the room, the reality of what lay ahead loomed large. The exhibition, the people, the expectations. What if she faltered when it mattered most? The next day, she arrived at the gallery for the first brainstorming session, Cassie's enthusiasm pulsing through the air. Ready to change lives? Cassie quipped, her grin infectious as they gathered with a small team of artists and advocates. Let us do this. Grace replied, trying to drown out her anxious thoughts. The weight of the upcoming exhibition settled in, demanding clarity and creativity from her. But as ideas flowed and excitement bubbled, the doubts skittered away like fallen leaves in the wind. Then, in the middle of a conversation about artistic themes, Cassie paused. Hey, I just realized, what about sharing your story in a deeper way? Not just your art, but your journey? Grace's heart raced again, but this time it was with possibility. The idea of intertwining her experiences with her art felt monumental. Could she do that? Was she ready? In that moment of uncertainty, an idea sparked a vision of the powerful stories she wished to tell. But right as inspiration surged within her, an unexpected voice rang out from the back of the crowd. What exactly makes you think your story is worth telling? The room went silent, all eyes shifting toward the source of the challenge. Grace felt her stomach drop. It was a stranger, standing boldly with arms crossed, ready to challenge everything she just began to believe in. How would she respond? Would she stand firm in her newfound resolve, or would this moment crush her dreams before they even took flight? As the air thickened with tension, Grace prepared to find her voice once again. Grace took a deep breath, the weight of the room pressing down on her. Every eye was trained on her, curiosity mingled with skepticism. The stranger, an imposing figure with sharp features softened only by the furrow in his brow, continued to stare her down. What's worth telling? He repeated, his voice slicing through the awkward silence. Have you even lived enough to have a story? Heat flooded her cheeks. Grace couldn't believe it. She had prepared for countless critiques, but this? This felt personal. Did he not see the late nights spent at the easel, the struggles with self-doubt that haunted her every brushstroke? I may not have a million experiences, Grace said, her voice steadier than she felt. But I have my truth. Isn't that what matters? We all have stories, right? We all have the right to share them. The man crossed his arms tighter, raising an eyebrow as if questioning her conviction. Cassie leaned in closer, almost as if trying to shield Grace from the harsh aura radiating off him. Come on, she said, a hint of defiance in her tone. Art reflects life. Grace's life is filled with moments that can inspire others. We're here to create something meaningful. I think you're being naive, he shot back, dismissing Cassie's defense. A lot of artists fail to grasp the fact that not every story deserves a spotlight. If it doesn't resonate with people, will it matter? The room tensed, the air almost crackling. Grace could feel her heart pounding in her chest, every beat reminding her of the stakes at play. She wasn't just trying to prove herself to this man, she was standing up for her dreams, for every moment she had poured into her art. With a deep breath, she decided to embrace the challenge. What if I told you that my story is one of overcoming? Of navigating a world that often feels unwelcoming? There's beauty in struggle. Beauty in authenticity. It's my truth, and it can touch people in ways I might not even understand yet. The man's expression shifted slightly, a crack in the cool veneer he had built. It was a flicker, but it was there. Touching people is great, but it won't get you far if they don't feel your message, he countered, his voice softer now, as if the challenge had sparked something in him too. Then maybe that's my role to connect those feelings, Grace said, her voice rising with newfound confidence. Maybe my art can bridge that gap, remind others that their voices matter, too. A murmur flitted through the group, small but growing. As she spoke, artists and advocates exchanged glances, the tension slowly melting into something less intimidating, something more productive. She saw their faces light up. Well, the man replied, his demeanor shifting again. Maybe I underestimated you. That's your job to prove me wrong. Grace smiled, relief washing over her like a warm tide. I will. As the discussion resumed, the atmosphere in the room transformed. Ideas flowed once again, threads weaving a tapestry of dreams and aspirations that began to feel real. Grace felt her heart swell, each word pushing her fears aside. But as excitement swirled within her, the spark of creative clarity ignited a deeper realization. With every artist's story laid bare, she would have to confront her own demons. The questions of whether her experiences were enough loomed heavier now than ever. What if creating this exhibition forced her to face her past more brutally than she expected? Would sharing her life lead to discovery or devastation? As the meeting came to an end, Grace felt the thrill of possibility mixed with an unsettling hint of fear. She turned to Cassie, her best friend and ally, and whispered, I can do this, right? Cassie smiled, a beacon of unwavering support. Absolutely. Just remember, it's your story. You get to tell it your way. With uncertainty trailing behind her, Grace wondered if she could find the strength to lay her soul bare. And as she left the gallery, the world felt both open and terrifying. How could she transform her journey not just into art, but into a courageous testament that others could connect with? Grace felt the ripple of challenge ahead, the questions starting to bubble like an approaching storm, and she knew this was just the beginning. Grace found herself wandering through the streets, the soft glow of streetlights illuminating her path like distant stars. Each step felt heavy with the weight of the unknown. As excitement bubbled within her, she also felt a gnawing fear in the pit of her stomach. Could she really share her story? The air was crisp, filled with the distant sound of laughter from a nearby cafe. She watched as groups of friends shared moments of joy over steaming cups of coffee, their carefree spirits causing a pang of longing in her heart. Grace had always been an observer, the one on the sidelines catching glimpses of life rather than diving into it. Tonight, though, she craved more than just observation. She wanted to be part of the tapestry woven by humanity. Cassie's words echoed in her mind, it's your story. You get to tell it your way. But what did that even mean? As she continued to walk, memories began to flood in. The late nights alone in her room, the quiet battles against crippling self-doubt, the harsh critiques after every failed attempt to express herself on canvas. Images of her childhood flooded through her mind, the dreams that once ignited her heart, the times she felt lost amidst her family's expectations. The rough edges of her past seemed to sharpen, waiting to be reshaped into something beautiful. She suddenly halted at a mural splashed across a wall, vibrant colors bursting forth like fireworks lighting the night sky. Intrigued, Grace stepped closer, her fingers brushing against the cool, grainy surface of the paint. It was a piece about the struggles of broken relationships, absurdity and pain, but through it all, a reflection of hope shimmered. She understood that life was messy, often complicated, but within the chaos lay profound beauty. Maybe that's it, she thought. Maybe my struggles can create something meaningful. Her breath caught as a realization settled inside her. To truly tell her story, she'd have to peel back the layers of pain, heartbreak, and hope. The thought was daunting, yet exhilarating. This exhibition could be her chance to connect, not just with others but with herself. As she carried on, her resolve strengthened with each passing moment. She envisioned her art, each brushstroke a testament to her journey. She could paint her fears, her victories, and the moments that shaped her existence. It wouldn't just be a collection of art, it would be a bridge to people's hearts. By the time she returned home, the chill of night had turned into a comforting embrace. She felt a flicker of excitement that filled the previous hollow space in her chest. This was her moment to reclaim her narrative, to transform struggles into a narrative that resonated with others. Sitting at her easel, she prepared her canvas, the blank surface a world of inherent possibilities. With every brush she touched, she would breathe life into her experiences. She would show the beauty in her truth. But then, a moment of doubt flickered through her mind. What if it wasn't enough? What if her story didn't resonate with anyone? Just then, her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her thoughts. It was Cassie, her message a flood of encouragement. "You're ready, Grace. Remember, vulnerability is strength." Grace smiled, her heart beating with a renewed sense of purpose. She took a deep breath, ready to finally reveal herself. Would her truth resonate? And as she dipped her brush into paint, she felt the urgency of storytelling calling her forward. What would her journey uncover, and would the answers she sought lie beneath the surface of her art? The next stroke would shape not just the canvas, but her entire path ahead. With her brush poised above the canvas, Grace could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her. Every stroke that grazed the surface seemed to echo with a voice, asking for clarity. She dipped her brush into vibrant blue, the color representing her sadness, and began to paint. The flow of the paint felt therapeutic. As she moved, she became lost in the rhythm, guided by a mixture of fear and anticipation. Memories of rejection and self-doubt were intertwined with visions of hope and healing. Each stroke embodied a moment from her past, a visceral recollection of when she allowed fear to define her. The blue morphed into deep indigo as the shadows of her insecurity came to life on the canvas. Was this even the right way to express herself? Her heart raced. Should she really unearth these emotions for the world? Would they accept her flaws, her vulnerabilities? Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was Cassie, sharing a photo of her latest project, an intricate mural that captured the essence of friendship. Cassie's bold strokes and brilliant colors radiated life and laughter. Grace felt another pang of yearning. She admired Cassie's confidence and wished for the same. Finally, she took a breath, pushing away the swirling doubts clouding her mind. "This is my moment," she whispered to herself. "I can do this." Grace picked a bright gold hue, the color of triumph, and began to layer it over the indigo. As the brush glided across the canvas, she envisioned each interaction she'd experienced in her life: warm hugs after difficult days, laughter shared around dinner tables, and the quiet moments when she felt seen. The gold spilled out from her heart onto the canvas, and she felt the weight of her fears give way to something lighter. This was her story to tell, and it was valid. The colors began to dance together, creating new patterns that captured both her struggle and her joy. Without realizing it, she had lost track of time. Hours melted away, and the once blank canvas transformed into a vivid display of her journey. She stepped back, breathless, taking in the colorful representation of her existence. Each inch of that canvas was a part of her, telling a tale only she could express. But just as clarity settled in, a flicker of uncertainty snuck back in. What would her family think? Would they understand the depths of her emotions? The fear of their judgment loomed heavy. Would they still love her when they saw the raw, exposed threads of her soul laid bare for everyone to see, she picked up her phone, staring at Cassie's cheerful image again, contemplating sending her a picture of her work in progress. But doubt crept in. What if the art wasn't good enough? What if her story fell flat before an audience? Just as she was about to put her phone down, a vibration caught her attention. It was a group message from the exhibition coordinator. Excited to see everyone's pieces. Remember, authenticity is key. Grace's heart raced at the reminder. It was a gentle nudge from the universe, urging her to drop perfection and speak from the heart. In that moment, she knew this exhibition was more than just an opportunity, it was a lifeline to connect her breaking pieces into something whole. With renewed determination, she picked the brush again, ready to finish what she started. This was about her, it was elevated beyond fear. But as she painted, another thought entered her mind. What would happen when she stood before the audience? Would they embrace her truth, or would she face more rejection? As the evening wore on and the colors blended into a masterpiece of her journey, Grace found herself at a crossroads. Her heart was pounding with both fear and excitement. Would revealing her truth bring freedom, or would it trap her in a cage built of judgment? That question hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful as she realized her journey was just beginning. Grace rolled into the gallery that night, the soft hum of conversations and the varying hues of excitement settled around her like a gentle embrace. The air was thick with anticipation, and she felt the buzzing energy of support from everyone who had come to witness this pivotal moment in her life. Her heart raced, a mixture of pride and fear swirling within her as she glanced around at her paintings. Each work, soaked in vulnerability and resilience, was a chapter of her story, a glimpse into her soul. Tyler was there, his smile grounding her amidst the sea of faces. "You ready for this?" he asked, eyes twinkling with encouragement. It felt good to know he believed in her. "I'm as ready as I'll ever be," she replied, though her hands trembled on the wheels of her chair. The doors opened for the guests, and Grace prepared for the flood of onlookers. Each meaningful piece captivated viewers, leading to earnest conversations sparking from her messages of struggle and triumph. It made her heart flutter to hear their thoughts, a symphony of empathy resonating through the space. "This one really speaks to me," a woman murmured, pointing to a painting depicting a mother's love amidst chaos. As the gallery began to fill up, Grace's father entered, his gaze sweeping the room. He seemed like a figure from another world, the world of privilege and power, yet he stood uncertainly, a king without a crown in her realm of art. The defensive wall he'd erected around their relationship had shifted slightly, and a flicker of concern crossed his face as he caught her eye. Grace felt a pang of emotion. Could he see her? Really see her? Taking a deep breath, she adjusted her stance, deciding now was the time to stand tall. "Dad, come here," she called out, her voice steadying with purpose. He approached, hesitating as if unsure of his footing among the painted truths of her life. "What is this?" he asked gruffly, his tone guarded. "It's my truth," she replied, looking directly into his eyes. "I'm sharing the stories that echo through our community, stories we can't ignore." Something shifted in his gaze, a flicker of understanding beginning to unfurl like a delicate bloom. The evening wore on, and as guests engaged more deeply with her work, Grace's confidence grew. Each conversation felt like an affirmation, soaked in respect and connection. She watched Cassie move among the crowd, their shared purpose enveloping the space with a newfound hope. Cassie was drawn to her authenticity. She had made it clear there was power in vulnerability and they were in this together. Then, the moment came. As the night unfolded, Nathan Crown approached, a distinguished air surrounding him. "Grace," he said, his voice resonant, "your work has not only touched the hearts in this room, it has the potential to ripple outward. Your story matters." Heart pounding, she managed to smile. "Thank you. I want people to feel connected through my art. Life is too short to sit in silence." And just like that, an openness started to unravel. The onlookers nodded, murmurs of shared experiences weaving a tapestry of solidarity. After speaking with Nathan, she glanced over at her father again. This time, he was engaged in conversation, brow furrowed as he contemplated the expressions of the attendees. His guarded demeanor shifted as he blinked, perhaps perceiving the depth behind what he previously saw as mere art. That flicker of comprehension wove a thread of hope between them. Finally, gathering her resolve, Grace wheeled closer to him. "Dad, can we talk?" He looked startled, hesitation swirling within him. "All right, but only for a moment." Reluctantly, he followed her to a quieter corner, leaving the buzz of the gallery behind. "Do you get it now?" she asked, her heart pounding with anticipation. These people connect with the stories of struggle. They see the beauty in the ugly parts of life. It's okay to let that out. His expression shifted, eyes searching her face. "I'm not used to this," he admitted, vulnerability creeping in. "I only want what's best for you, Grace. I've been afraid of what? That I'd fail?" Grace replied, her voice softened yet persistent. "This is about taking chances, about finding freedom. I want to speak for those who can't." "I see that," he said, the tension melting slightly from his shoulders. "You've grown and I need your support more than anything. I need you to look beyond the name, beyond the wealth." He inhaled deeply, the shadow of pride and disappointment flickering in his eyes. "Then I suppose it's time for me to start trusting you. Just promise me you'll be there to help if I falter." She held his gaze, tenderness pooling as they searched for mutual understanding. "Always," he replied, a note of conviction carried on the air between them. As the night wound down, Grace felt lighter than air. The gallery had transformed into a canvas of connection, and she had stepped fully into her power. Tyler's laughter echoed through her heart and Cassie's presence brushed against her soul like a warm embrace. As she took in the swirling colors and connections around her, a weight lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of self. Through the trials, she had found a voice worth sharing. She was ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand with the ones who believed in her, even when the doubts clouded her mind. This was just the beginning. It was her time to shine. So here's the call to action, right now. If you love this journey, subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button because your support fuels the algorithm. Leave a comment below sharing your deepest feelings about this stunning transformation, and please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to believe in the power of change. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support matters.